Signals are not, where your chest is hurting so bad you can hardly stand up and you're on the verge of a heart attack. It may be sustained shortness of breath or inability to do things you used to do may be enough. You just can't assume it's the aging process or something like that. I just missed it. That was my fault. I don't blame my doctors or anybody else. That was my fault. I was insufficiently vigilant.
Former President Bill Clinton, who had serious heart disease, says he should have noticed something, perhaps as far back as 2001, just after he left the White House. He felt he was in top condition, but
when I would go out to run, after a mile, I'd have to stop and walk 100 yards or 200 yards and get my breath, and then I could run again.
Spring 2004, again, warnings, but he ignored them and pushed through.
I had several instances where my chest felt tight when I was exercising. And because I could, slow down and then resume that level without tightness recurring, I just assumed it was because I was exhausted and I was out of shape.
By summer 2004,
we have some very steep hills around here, and I'd take my dog for a walk, and he'd pull me up these steep hills, and halfway up the hill I'd have to stop and catch my breath, and it was just ridiculous because I was in the best shape of my life, apparently.
And we asked the doctors about a surprising fact, that the president had yearly stress tests, but those tests showed nothing.
Stress tests are a screening test, and like all screening tests, they have false positive and false negative rates. It's going to have some situations where someone has a problem, but the stress test looks fine.
Not only that, the president says since his high cholesterol seemed to be down, he was reassured and ended the medication Zocor.
Should the doctor have told you not to go off Zocor, and it was your decision to do it?
No, but to be fair to them, they used the latest standards for what cholesterol was, and my cholesterol was below that. Now it's much lower now. I think it is, I think that since I left the White House, maybe if I'd stayed on a lower fat diet, maybe if I had not eaten so many hamburgers and steaks, which I love, maybe if I'd, had slightly less stress in my life, I worked as hard since I left office as I did when I was there. Maybe it would have been different.
Well, I have to say, he was really into, the low-carb, high-protein diet. I didn't think it was healthy, but I know so many people who are doing that now. I would say, well, you really think you should have like a cheeseburger every day for lunch and, steak as many times as you want? I remember we went for a walk with our dog, Seamus, and we were walking up this hill near our house, and he said, I'm just so tired. I just don't feel like I can do this. And I urged him to go see the doctor and see what the explanation could be. But he'd been working really hard on his book, literally around the clock, and hadn't been sleeping. It was allergy season. He always has a tougher time breathing during allergy season. And I nagged him some. I told him I thought he really should go see somebody about it, but he was so convinced it was nothing. And now I wish I'd nagged more, but I'm not sure it would have made a difference.
And then, August 2004, the incident that finally sent the former president to the doctor.
I had a really severe tightness in my chest when I came home from my last book tour on August 31st in New Orleans. And I'd never had that before, unrelated to exercise.
Days later, his wife and daughter are watching him, wheeled away to surgery.
To watch that hospital bed roll away from you.
Oh, I know.
And not know what's on the other side of the doors.
Right. He said, don't let them put that funny hat on my head when they take me away. I don't want to go into the operating room with that hat on. So I talked to one of the nurses. I said, could you put the hat on later, And
the surgery would last 4 hours. For 73 minutes, his heart was stopped. He was on a heart-lung machine.
He looked so peaceful. There wasn't a line in his face. He looked so rested. It looked like he had been in the deepest sleep he'd been since I've known him for 33 years.
Were you aware of this vision he brought back as a souvenir in a way from whatever continent he was on, whatever land he visited when he was there?
I've heard about people who have experiences like that where they see darkness and then they see light, and it was so moving to me. And he said it was It was so reassuring. He said, I'd see the darkness and then I'd see you in Chelsea and I'd see the light. And, you know, it really meant so much to me.
And remember when he worked the operating room?
Before that, I'd met him in Iceland, and then we'd gone to Ireland to see some of our friends, to make some speeches, and to actually go golfing. So he was waving, you know, he was really tired. When he came out, he said, "We had a nice time in Iceland, didn't we? And didn't you love Ireland?" And he was so blissful. But those first few hours, particularly the time right after I got to see him, I will treasure forever, because he just, you know, he kept holding Chelsea's in my hand. He kept telling us how much he loved us.
I know that I must have been concerned about it because I was apparently quite happy when I woke up. I'll never get tired of living. But I think it's a great waste of time to sit around in morbid fear of a fate that we all have to share. So you just have to, I think the most important thing is to keep your head in the game and to think about what you're doing at the moment